Today, my guests are Ben Rogers and Ryker Richard with Raptors Digest on Instagram. Probably the best source for all things Raptors hoops for this upcoming season. And since you guys started it, how are you guys doing tonight?
Great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks, man, for the introduction. But we're not just Instagram. We're way bigger on YouTube. We're on TikTok now, website.
Yeah, we got the TikTok going.
That's pretty sick. So my first question for you guys is, when and why did you start Raptors Digest?
Well, it started off just originally as a Twitter page. So to get Kyle Lowry actual votes into the All-Star game, because all of Canada sort of backs that guy to really get things going and stuff. Then Riker and I worked at a law firm together for summer, and we said how cool it would be to turn this sort of Raptors Digest page into a podcast. A couple of months went by, we got it started, got on YouTube, and yeah, it's really taken off from there. And then we built out the Instagram, now we're plugging it right away, the TikTok. So we got a website built, a few writers going. So it's been a wild ride.
That's sick.
Yeah, the truth was he called me and said, "Hey, do you know how much money YouTubers can make?" And I said, well, it's a fantastic incentive. Plus, we would just be talking about recording stuff that we would be talking about anyways, i.e. Raptors content. And it really wasn't even that slow of a start, like probably 100 views per video for the first couple of videos. And then we had a segment piece called Lonzo Ball to the Toronto Raptors ? And that one had, I think, 1,000 views. And then after that, it kind of got exponential with subscribers, following, etc. It's been very fun.
That's pretty sick. So were you guys kind of the first in your family to become major Raptors fans, or was it like, since you guys are both from Canada, I am too, it's a full Canadian podcast tonight for the first time. Were you guys kind of the first fans that really kind of take it seriously as wanting the best for this team?
Well, for me, my fam has been diehard Raps fan since I was born. So it's that's been the household, every game's watched, all that sort of stuff. So I'm not sure if it's the same for you, Riker.
No, my mom knows nothing about basketball whatsoever, but Ben and I started playing basketball as wee lads and played basketball together for many, many years. And just by virtue of being a basketball parent, I'm sure that they kind of get into it anyways. But yeah, Ben's parents are definitely as avid fans as we are, Ben and I. So it's great.
I can see the Lowry jersey in the back. What year is that from?
That's
one of the old jerseys.
Yeah, that looks like I think it's 2014. They've had the same kit for a few years. So I think I got that in 2014, but you got to rep the OG Lowry jersey.
So I ask a big question at the start just to kind of get us kicked off. So for you guys, coming from Vince Carter, in my opinion, the greatest Raptor of all time, even though he was only there for just a few amount of years, to the days of Andrea Bargnani, the Italian assassin, I used to call him, with DeMar, Amir Johnson, Patrick Patterson, Jose Calderon, guys like that. And then you guys bring in Lowry. Then you get young guys like OG, Fred, Pascal, even Terrence Davis. These like that last year was a surprise to me. What should Raptors fans expect from them this season?
Well, we had really high expectations going into this year. Obviously, we're recording at a time when I think we're tied for last in the Eastern Conference, or at least close to it.
You're 2-7 right now.
Yeah, so it's been tough. Hopefully it'll be a big Portland win tonight, but I think we still have a strong roster. I still have high expectations we can turn it around this season. Nick Nurse has been trying a lot of lineups and stuff. The league has been really weird as of late, so I'm expecting us to bounce back. I still haven't lost that undying confidence whenever we play basically any other team, but it has not looked too bright so far, and we definitely have to acknowledge that.
Parker, can we unpack some of it? Can we unpack the tone in which you said some of those players' names? First, need to strongly object to Vince Carter being the greatest. And there's obviously a debate between best and great, because Kawhi is the best. I don't think there's any denying. Greatest has now become Kyle Lowry. He bought a championship to the city. He absolutely transformed the culture and the the franchise, the organization, people's fandom of basketball in Toronto. But Andrea Bargnani, you said that with a little bit of disgust. You disparaged the name a little bit. He was just ahead of his time. If Andrea Bargnani was in today's league, he'd be a stretch four. He'd be perfect.
No, that's what I really liked him. I thought he was going to be pretty good. I believe he was the first overall pick. I forget what year he was drafted, but there's a lot of high
06.
expectations
The
for
GOAT.
him. But you brought up Kawhi. I really want to get into Kawhi for a second. So when you heard the news in 2018 summer that you guys are getting Kawhi Leonard, what was your first reactions to that?
Well, I guess I can go first because I was the night before. So there's rumors flying left, right, and center that DeMar DeRozan was going to be sent to the Spurs, and that would have been enough of a heartbreaker. But along with that, all the rumors said that Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby were in that package as well if this deal went through. So yes, Jakob Poeltl is a nice piece and all that, but if we had to give up DeMar, Siakam, and OG, I was just not having it. So when I was woken up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Newfoundland time, whenever it was, being told that Kawhi Leonard was traded to the Raptors, I was absolutely shook. I was distraught. I was horrified. But then I realized it was just DeMar, Poeltl, and a pick.
Yeah.
And we got Danny Green back. My emotions quickly turned. Obviously, all Raptors fans were devastated to lose DeMar DeRozan, but we knew the player we were getting back, even if it was a little bit questionable if he'd actually attend camp and play, if he was healthy, all that sort of stuff. But when you get a top 5, and honestly that season a top 2 guy, you're just amped to really to bring that guy in your team.
Yeah, like I can jump in too. I mean, there was a lot of interesting news when that broke in terms of whether people were immediately gratified that Masai Ujiri pulled trigger on a DeMar DeRozan trade, given he was the face of the franchise. But the Raptors, this is what built the Masai legend. The reason that who wanted him, the Knicks wanted him so hard, or the Pistons. I don't remember who was vying to sign Masai Ujiri, but this is the stuff of legend where you flip literally a LeBronto, a perennial all-star player, but he's never made it really past the second round one time, and then he's still good in San Antonio, but you flipped him and basically 1 for 1. You flipped him for 2 because Jakob Poeltl is nothing. He didn't develop into a good center. So you flipped him for Danny Green.
Right. Don't
he's all right.
Slander.
I'm just saying.
I was quite surprised that Toronto did this. I thought I would love to get your guys' take on this. I would have rather gave Kyle Lowry because I was just more of a DeMar fan than Kyle Lowry back then. I just
would have lost. They wouldn't have made it past the Bucks.
You really think so?
Kyle Lowry was always every single year. DeMar had the flashier stats. He was a more culture guy, and honestly, he embraced the city earlier than Lowry was drafted by us. So definitely in terms of fandom, in terms of the face of the franchise, DeMar was definitely that guy. But Kyle Lowry was always the best player on all those teams. And when the Raptors got the nickname the Trash Bros, or that backcourt Lowry and DeRozan, it was really DeMar DeRozan struggling and Lowry either being injured or just being dragged down by the rest of the roster. And Lowry was really our engine. Our plus minus with him on the court was always the best. When DeMar's it was usually in the negative. The Lowry plus bench unit really got us through season after season. So Lowry was that number 1 guy, even if DeMar's more talented, more of a face and stuff. Lowry, I think, has just been the most underrated player in the NBA for the past half decade. So
he's not underrated. He's rated. He's an all-star. He's been an all-star
amongst the average fan.
He's an unathletic point guard, and he's been a 6 or 7 time all-star.
He's been pretty dang good. So I grew up in Vancouver. I watched constant Raptors games of disappointment, and then they finally break it to the playoffs. How long have they been going to the playoffs? How many straight years has it been? 10? 7?
Yes, 2014 was their bounce back year.
Okay, so I constantly watched them battle Washington. It seemed like for years they just hit them, and Washington went back and forth with Paul Pierce for that one weird year. And then they just constantly get stopped by LeBron James. It seemed like year after year after year. were you at any point thinking like, let's just break it up and start rebuilding? Or were you constantly wanting to try to get over, even though it seemed like every single time you would go up against them, there was absolutely no shot?
You
There
really
was a shot. There was a shot. There's always a shot.
Yeah. No, it was. I guess I could take it away because Masai Ujiri always made moves that indicated that we'd be able to take a step forward. And the first season we went up against LeBron, we brought in Damari Carroll, who was supposed to be that 3-and-D wing guy that would be the LeBron stopper, take us on the wing. But unfortunately, he was always injured. Now we have an award named after him, the Damari Carroll Gold Star Award for the worst moments of games, seasons, whatever. So Damari Carroll was an epic failure for the Toronto Raptors. The season following, we got Serge Ibaka, who obviously was a monster for us, but struggled being a power forward with our team that wasn't really unleashed till Nick Nurse came around. And PJ Tucker, we thought that would sort of work out, and then that was just a complete mess. Those memes with PJ Tucker and Jacob Pirtle, those memes that were going around. So then that final year, I think that was the year everyone was like, okay, we'd like to see something shaken up. And we got Kawhi Leonard, who didn't need to stop LeBron, but definitely stopped Giannis and all those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and the teams looked radically different every year. You have a Rudy Gay year, you have a Lou Williams year. They might have been the same year actually, but you had Gravis Vasquez at some point. Like there was just so many different players that came through this system that ultimately still carved out careers before and after playing on the Toronto Raptors. So there was always hope. And there was one year with Bismack Biyombo, which is the reason he got such a massive contract with the Charlotte Hornets, because he had an amazing 2 games against the Cleveland Cavaliers. So there was always hope, but I think the underlying knowledge that as long as LeBron's in the East, that a team led by DeMar at the helm, they're not going to make it through. They're not going to make it, past the Eastern Conference Finals. So something had to be done, but we also probably just assumed that LeBron would naturally leave Cleveland.
Yeah. Or get older.
Well, my next question was, how do you feel about the direction that Masai Ujiri has taken this team? Not maybe just this past offseason, but the last 2. You bring in Kawhi, Marcus Gasol, and win the championship. And then you guys lose Danny Green and Kawhi. And then you guys now this year lose Gasol and Serge and bring in Alex Len and Aaron Baines. So how do you feel he's done these past two-ish off seasons?
Well, Riker's been a little bit more critical of Masai, so I'll let him sound off first.
Yeah, I've been extraordinarily vocal on the missteps that Masai Ujiri has taken. Yeah. We've touted him as being the best president, or the best president in the league, really being able to pull off some absolute chess piece moves. And then what does he do? I said we need to have Ibaka re-signed, or this is going to be detrimental. Now, the whole issue with the offseason was cap space and leaving cap space open for the Giannis sweepstakes. Now, of course, he signed that super max with Milwaukee. So that whole scenario didn't really play out. But even if he was still, going into the next free agency season unsigned as a unrestricted free agent, Masai Ujiri still had the ability to sign Ibaka to a 1-year deal. And I think that that's his biggest issue, was he wasn't willing to pay $20 million over 1 season to keep Ibaka, make sure that the Raptors stay in the playoffs, make sure that they're a competitive team. He let him walk. And why did he let him walk? Because he wanted to get Gasol first. What was Gasol last season? He was a 1-2-2 guy. And what on earth are you chasing that man for? Yes, he was a playmaking 5. He was a playmaking center, and that's a valuable thing to have. But you could have slipped Ibaka up into a 5. It was documented that he wasn't really happy coming off the bench. And so whatever, you let Gasol walk, you give Ibaka $20 million over the short term. Even if the Clippers offer him a 2-year, he's still going to pick more money. I mean, that's the end goal. That's the incentive for a guy who's not, he's not going to be the number 1 guy in a team. And then we're looking at guys like Christian Wood. We're looking at guys like, young, mobile, athletic bigs that Ben and I were saying all free off season you need to sign, and he missed those opportunities as well. Now Christian Wood's out balling and on Houston. I'm terribly disappointed with Masai Ujiri.
Yeah, and I've been sort of the Masai advocate, and Raptors fans, everyone loves Masai Ujiri, thinks he's the best and stuff, and his track record speaks for itself. But definitely the Serge Ibaka misstep was huge. And for people that don't know, listening to this podcast, Masai Ujiri, it wasn't necessarily the money, which was the big issue for Serge Ibaka returning. The big issue was he wanted to re-sign Marc Gasol and split the minutes when Marc Gasol was literally a shell of himself last season. So Serge Ibaka didn't want to be playing behind him once again. So that was just sort of a dumb move by Masai Ujiri. You got to appease Serge Ibaka with how valuable he has been. Now, I see where he's coming from, whereas in the playoffs, we ran in the most important moments of our season a small ball unit with OG Anunoby at center, and maybe he assumed we'd be fine without Serge. We can run this lineup, and we've ran it for the past couple games, and this team looks a lot better when we have either OG or Chris Boucher at center instead of running Aaron Baines or Alex Len. So I get that vision, and we'll see how that ends up paying off. But in terms of the draft picks, in terms of the team structure, in terms of getting Fred VanVleet and Anunoby back on steals of contract extensions, I like what Masai's done in difficult circumstances, obviously losing a superstar, losing a solid role player in Danny Green. And it'll be interesting to see what he actually does with that cap space next season.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, especially when you guys give Fred VanVleet $80 million. For you guys, do you think he's worth every single penny he got?
Yeah, he's worth every single penny. But also, we're in very similar cap space now to the Miami Heat, who... nobody's criticizing the moves that they've made. And actually, maybe there's a bit of criticism towards Bam Adebayo. Like, they pulled trigger a little bit early on that, in my opinion, because they had the bird rights to him anyways. But Fred VanVleet, for all intents and purposes, this guy, he's the number one option. He's emerged as the number one option. In that Boston Celtics loss, which was a very devastating loss, he was scoring over Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Tristan Thompson. Like, he's not a finisher in the paint, and he's even took it upon himself as a 6-foot guard to start doing those things, to look Lowry-esque. So this guy is going to be a star in the league. You had to sign him. And we thought that the Hornets, that the Knicks, that the Pistons were going to swoop in and max him out, same way that they did Bismack Biyombo. And he re-signs for 22 million a year. It's perfect.
Yeah, Fred's worth every penny. We got him on a steal. I was ready to give Fred 20, 25, 27 million. That would have been high, but that's where he's that valuable to our team.
I think he is for you guys. I was worried, like Ryker said, a Charlotte was going to come into play. I didn't think maybe after they drafted LaMelo. Definitely before, I'm like, Detroit might give him $120 million because they just have cap space to blow. The Knicks were interesting, but I mean, even Phoenix. Here in Phoenix, there was a lot of rumors of VanVleet coming here. I think more Suns fans hope that. I don't think it was actual real rumors. But and then Pascal, he's had his struggles. I know he really struggled in the playoffs last year against the Celtics. I don't mean this in a jokingly way, but does he need to find a different post move besides the spin move he constantly does?
That's tough. That's been sort of the meme with Pascal Siakam now, the human spin top, the blade, all that sort of stuff. And we joke about it. We meme Pascal Siakam, but he's a guy that I don't really think his biggest issue is teams have figured him out. He's a one-dimensional player, any of that sort of thing, because he was a second option on a championship roster for basically all pre-pandemic last season. This guy was an absolute beast for us, winning games left, right, and center, closing games, being able to score down the clutch when there's 2 and 3 guys on him, and doing all those same similar post-up moves. And it wasn't really the playoffs where Pascal struggled, because he was horrendous the whole entire bubble. And it was a mixture of not being in shape. His handle wasn't as tight. The jumpers weren't going in. Nothing was really working for Pascal Siakam at all. So I don't think it was really teams have locked in on him and figured out his moves and that sort of stuff. I think it's more so him being engaged, him being in a rhythm, him being in shape. And we saw at the start of this season some similar shades of the bubble, but as it's gone along, as his rhythm's gotten closer, the past 3 or 4 games, he's really looked good. He looks back into his own zone. He's not really doing much different, but definitely would like to see him protect the ball a lot more when he's in the paint, because there is that second defender coming. But I think Pascal Siakam will be fine, even if he doesn't completely change up his game.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing: is Pascal Siakam? He's not being defended by bigs right now, and
Mhm.
he kind of created a name for himself in the league because he is a 6'9", 6'10" power forward center, and so there was traditional bigs that were guarding him, and he just had the quickness to get around to finish strong in the paint. But now they've realized since the bubble, hey, we can just put guards on this guy because he's missing his
Mhm.
floaters, he's missing his baby hooks, his turnaround jumpers in the paint. But over the past 3 games, they've put him down in the low block. They've had him do his post-up moves. You can make fun of his spin all you want, but he's been scoring in there. It's when he's trying to do other things, pull up in the mid-range, pull up off the dribble, take his threes. He's less efficient from there. So he's slowly working his way back up, I think, to find his confidence within himself. And in games that he closed last season, it's because he was taking advantage of good matchups. Now, he's going to be memed, especially so in that most recent game, because he tried to take a spin on Andrew Wiggins, who was 3 blocks in that game, played fantastic defense, and then he spun on him to shoot a buzzer beater fadeaway from the mid-range when he probably could have got past them and taken a layup. But I would have rather had anybody else. Like, to me, Pascal Siakam is fantastic. He's not the closer. He's not the closer to create an off the dribble pull-up jump shot. That's not his game. Right, that's probably his least efficient shot. I'd rather have Lowry shoot. I'd rather have Van Vliet shoot. I'd rather have Norm Powell shoot. I'd rather have OG open in the corner to hit a shot like he did against the Boston Celtics. But the thing is, that's a small lineup, and it makes the most sense to have Pascal Siakam try to get a shot at the lane. I thought his handle kind of slipped, and that's why he pulled for a fadeaway. So I don't want to give people the satisfaction to meme him that was his intention to go out and do a spinning fadeaway on Andrew Wiggins at the top of the key.
And just to sort of reiterate that point, one thing about Pascal last year, though, he was really good at closing games last year. And to build off it, it wasn't from the three, as Ryker mentioned. He was good at getting into the lane, getting to his spots, and whether there's bigs or smalls on him, he was an actual closer for this team pre-pandemic. So we're hoping he sort of gets back to that level. It was unfortunate he took that spinning fade against the Warriors, but baby steps.
Well, Ben, how often are you going to throw the ball into the post with 3 seconds left? Like, my point is that he's not really a closer. He's not a closer when the game is tied or you're down.
Philadelphia last season, Golden State last season, Sacramento last season. This guy was hitting game winners, Riker. Game-winning shots, game-tied shots. So I think he'll bounce back.
I think so. I hope he does, because I really liked him, especially against the Warriors in the finals. It seemed like he was just on another level, especially in Fred VanVleet too. You brought up a little bit earlier, Giannis. Of course, he signed that Supermax. Who are some guys you're hoping, with the cap space you guys have, Masai, targets in free agency or maybe possible trade for superstars unhappy?
Well, James Harden's been a name thrown around Raptors land for a lot recently, and obviously you'd have to give up Siakam. His value isn't super high right now, so we'll probably leave the James Harden discussion to the side because he gets brought up pretty consistently on our podcast. Another guy that's been a lot of Raptors fans are really interested in is Victor Oladipo, obviously an athletic slasher that can knock down threes. He looks like he's coming back from injury this season.
Mm-hmm.
And we currently have Fred VanVleet starting at the 2, who we've raved about on this podcast on our own. So he's an absolute beast for us. But the one thing where he struggled, and he has improved the season, is finishing around the rim. So having a guy like Depot who can consistently get in there, finish over people, around people, be a bit more athletic might be a nice compliment to Fred as Lowry ages out. And we don't really know what's going to happen to him going forward, but we really want him back on the squad. So those are 2 names, bigger names that the Raptors land has chatted about. Riker, do you have any other ones in mind?
Yeah, people are putting out. Did you just say John Collins?
Nope.
Oh,
everybody's saying John Collins right now because him and Trae Young are beefing. There was chatter about Marvin Bagley III because his father has been, taking shots at Luke Walton and the Sacramento Kings organization. So that was another name that popped up. Miles Turner is somebody that people are really high on in Raptors fandom, and everybody wants Zach LaVine. I don't know why, but that they want him.
Yeah.
Well, I believe it was you guys that posted Jonathan Isaac as a possible trade target.
Oh, that was our writer.
Yeah.
Our writer Josh. Shout out to Josh Goodwin, but he wanted to trade Kyle Lowry for Jonathan Isaac. And
what do you?
He was we threw in our group chat. We told him to get ready to be flamed, and he was certainly flamed. But it was a well-written article. Shout out Josh. He's done a great job. And whether we agree or disagree with his points, he definitely makes a well-rounded argument. But there's no way on earth we should trade Kyle Lowry for a guy that just tore his ACL. And we don't really know what we're going to expect from him in the future. But yeah, and Kyle Lowry, without him, we are 1,000 times worse this year and every year.
Yeah, so I have some stats for you guys. I pulled up. So you're 8th in pace right now, 28th in field goal percentage, 18th in 3-point percentage, 22nd in rebounds, tied first in assists, and you're 7th in steals. Really, I want to focus on the field goal percentage and the 3-point percentage. What does Nick Nurse have to do with this roster to kind of get him back to what the Raptors have been the last, I'll say 3 years, more at the top of the Eastern Conference instead of how you guys have been struggling so far this season?
Well, we've been raving about it the whole entire year. We raved about it at the start of this year, what lineups we wanted to see down the stretch. And that was going small. Obviously, we don't mind Aaron Baines playing a few minutes or whatever. And Alex Len has been a complete mess for us. But closing games with either a lineup of Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Pascal, and either Norman Powell or Chris Boucher, that's when the Raptors are playing their best. 5 guys that can stretch the floor, play mobile defense the same way we did with Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, and just play Raptors basketball. And I think running those lineups will lead to Raptors success. We've looked a lot better since we've been integrating more small ball lineups. So, and then just instilling confidence in the bench guys that you brought up earlier, Terrence Davis, Malachi Flynn, Matt Thomas, whoever off the bench could actually be consistent, finding a role for one of them and getting some production off our bench, because that's where the 3-point shooting percentage that you brought up has been really bad, the field goal percentage, because we have our main guys that have been good. We've been getting 10-point leads in every single game pretty well, except for the one that we feel like we played the best in against the Golden State Warriors. But then the bench comes in and it's a slaughter of our team. So getting consistency out of guys that we know can be good, and running those small ball units.
Ryker, what do you think?
Yeah, well, if I was you, I would have picked on 3-point shooting and rebounding. Because what did you say, that they're 18th in the league in rebounding?
22nd in rebounding and 18th. Oh, sorry, 28th in field goal percentage.
28th in field goal percentage. Yeah, but that's, the Raptors have been starting really poorly. You have Aaron Baines go out there and shoot 0 for 6 from 2 feet, miss 3 layups in a row on a possession. Like, there's no wonder that the field goal percentage is going to be so low. But rebounding, that's the one that hurts, because as Ben said, it has to be a small ball line. That has to be the key to success. That winning roster, that winning lineup is going to be playing in tandem, Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry to close. You're probably going to have Norman Powell out there, and then Pascal Siakam and OG. That's a small lineup, so it's not going to cut it to be 22nd in the league. In rebounding, we saw what happened to the Houston Rockets. You need to be number 1 in the league in 3-point shooting if you're going to be last in the league in rebounding. So they kind of need to find a way to bring that closer together. And I think just the guys need to commit. They need to figure out their roles, and the rest will come.
Yeah, I mean, I've really liked how Nick Nurse, because I feel like a lot of Raptors fans, maybe it's just me, I don't know about you guys, when Dwayne Casey was fired, I was like, wow, what kind of direction is this team really about to go in? Are they going to tank? And of course, you guys get Kawhi and everything was smooth sailing from there. But Nick Nurse has been one hell of a coach these last couple of years for you guys. What are you hoping he is the coach for years to come?
Oh yeah, no, Nick Nurse is the best coach in the NBA in my opinion. The way he's creative, the way he sort of implements different sets, the way he gets the most out of guys, especially prior to the season. Because last year we had injuries left, right, and center. People had us not making the playoffs, and he took people off the deep bench like McCaw, like Boucher, last season, who never had minutes in his career. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, who's out the league right now, and just
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, like people will put a caveat on winning the championship last year because of injuries, etc. But like they don't really give the Raptors a lot of credit for how tough their series was against the 76ers, how tough it was
Mhm.
against the Bucks. Like if you'll remember, the Bucks stomped the Raptors for that first game or two, and then Nick Nurse really completely adjusted his defensive sets, and then the Raptors went on to win 4 in a row. Likewise, they threw crazy box and ones, stuff that's never triangle and two, stuff that's never seen in the NBA. And then he pulled it out in a championship series and completely shut down. We just saw it again last night or 2 nights ago against the Golden State Warriors and shutting down Steph Curry. So he's very creative, but he's working with a bit of a rough squad right now.
Yeah, I want to focus on the finals just because I feel like that's one of the greatest moments or probably the greatest moment in franchise history. Was there any worry you guys had that they weren't going to be able to win?
Oh yeah, you're going up against the Golden State Warriors, Kevin Durant coming back. There's always that worry, but you're just watching this team for the first time ever make it this far with this roster that you've been following for so long. Obviously, we
Mhm.
had some new additions in Kawhi and Danny Green, but just watching Kyle Lowry, Ibaka, Norm, all these guys play on the biggest stage, Siakam, Fred, it was just a moment of bliss for almost all Raptors fans across the country. Whether if I was in Montreal and then came back to Newfoundland for the end of the series, and people that didn't watch basketball, people that didn't really know what was going on, were just flooding the streets literally everywhere. I watched videos of it now. It's weird kind of seeing it in COVID times because there's so many people packed in one place, but it was crazy. And you're worried the whole time, but the boys pulled through.
Yeah. That's what makes series so fun. That's what makes any sport so fun. It's when it's a blowout. It's not nearly as exciting when there's a chance that you're going to lose or it's down to the wire. Those are the most memorable experiences. That's why really that 76ers series was immortalized. The shot, it's those things like, I don't think that people are going to really remember necessarily the Golden State Warriors series, more winning and the parade and that
Yeah,
76ers series. So the closer, the better.
Yeah.
that
And to build off those points too, like the worriedness about potentially losing, all the teams we went up against were really stacked. Even the Golden State Warriors with their injuries, because the Sixers, they had Jimmy Butler. We saw what he was able to do this season with a squad, but that was paired with Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, JJ Redick, Tobias Harris. Mike Scott was on fire off the bench that series. James Ennis. They really came to play, and I think they could have potentially won the chip if Kawhi misses that shot and it goes to overtime. The Bucks were a 60-win roster, just torching teams left, right, and center. They completely wiped out the Boston Celtics, who had Kyrie Irving at that point, even though they had internal issues going on. And then the Golden State Warriors, even without Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson going down, that's still 3 Hall of Famers you have that have championship experience and a lot of run out there. So it was a tough road for the Raptors to make, and all the more exciting.
Well, you bring up that 76ers series. That was by far my favorite playoff series over the last 5 years, just of how competitive it was. It was constantly back and forth. Like in Raptor history, I feel like they've had a struggle in the playoffs, especially in that second round. But when you guys see Kawhi go through cross court and then pulls up that shot, were you thinking he was going to hit it, or what were really your thoughts during that whole segment of plays?
Yeah, where were you when you were watching this record?
Where was I when I was
Yeah,
watching the shot?
yeah.
The shot.
I'm in Kingston, Ontario, which is between Montreal and Toronto and Ottawa. I don't know what your fan base is or what their knowledge of geography in Canadian cities is, but it's a pretty quaint, probably non-basketball city. And as Ben said, the bars were absolutely jam-packed. I know this is a PG audience, so we were drinking, apple juice, water, etc., and everybody was just feeling the energy. And yeah, that's what it was. Just absolute pandemonium, craziness, good times.
Yeah, it's the same sort of boat. About 20 guys packed, 20 people packed in my apartment. One of my best friends, she's a Sixers fan actually, so I just kind of blocked everything out there watching this game. She's behind me trying to roast as Jimmy Butler hits that layup, just sort of on the floor having a little little breakdown, and then we see Kawhi knock down that shot and just completely lose it. And I don't know. It was a chaotic moment.
It was definitely a chaotic moment. And I really want to ask this question. I know a lot about Toronto just from living in Canada. Who would you guys say has been the Raptors besides LeBron? I'll kick him out. Who has been the Raptors' biggest rival in your guys' opinion over the last X amount of years?
We know him,
Team
Ben.
or player?
Raptors
Team or player?
killers.
Yeah, team or player?
I'll say team, because player, I feel like it is LeBron just because of the playoff experience you guys have had. But who oh, Riker's nodding his head. No,
Yeah, it's Paul Pierce.
We've documented Raptors killers. We have Paul Pierce. We have Jimmy Butler. We have who is it? Jeremy Lamb.
Yeah.
There's been a handful.
Who would you say team wise then?
I feel, even though we only have one series against them, I feel like the Boston Celtics are a team that's always sort of a brutal matchup to go up against. Unfortunately, we've only had one series against them, and it was in the bubble, so the fans really couldn't get into it. I think the Bucks could potentially be one of those teams as we knocked them out with the OG Giannis. I think it was his first year there, and we finessed them on a trade. We traded Gravis Vasquez and received back OG Anunoby and Norman Powell, so we always sort of fleeced that in Bucks fans' face. We've been going after Giannis now. We've been making videos on him. Raptors fans have been calling for him to Toronto for the past couple of years. So I know Bucks fans really hate that. Then I guess with all the Drake stuff, tweeting out, making his profile picture, the owner's daughter, the Mike Budenholzer massage, or getting mad at Drake massaging Nick Nurse, and coming back from the 2 to 4, coming back from down 0-2. I'd probably put the Bucks as our biggest rival, but it's an interesting question.
Riker, what about you?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I had a point, but I just got lost in Ben's explanation of it. No, that's what I was going to say. It probably is Boston, actually, because when we put up Boston, where has he gone? Parker has left the building.
I had to turn my fan on. It's so hot in my room right now.
I'm sweating here. I'm not wearing a shirt under the jumper, and I don't want to make it weird. We're on Zoom. We can all see each other. So, but it has to be Boston with comparing Jason Tatum and Pascal Siakam together over the last 2 or 3 seasons. Celtics fans have been getting absolutely heated. They hate the comparisons. They even hate him getting compared to Jaylen Brown, whatever his name is, Brown.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown.
And whenever we make a video insinuating anything about Boston on our YouTube channel, it's always flooded with comments from Boston fans. They're hilariously aggressive when there was no COVID. If you watch a Boston game, there like a lot of Boston fans actually show up in Toronto. So that to me, it's that. But they have better rivalries though than Toronto. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My last question before we get into our last segment. Once the arena opens in Tampa, are you guys going to make the trip to go see a Raptor game in Tampa, Florida?
No, we're not.
Man, I hate Tampa so much.
Yeah.
I hate their fans, those disgusting fans of anything except for the home team. We provide them one season of entertainment and they decide to cheer for everybody but the Raptors. It's disgusting.
Yeah. I hope. Yeah. I really hope that, and I know this probably is a stupid thing to say. I heard the NBA is hoping for a new expansion with 2 teams. I'm really, really hoping the Raptors don't get moved to Tampa. And thank God the arena is shut down. So there's no fan experience for the Raptors in Tampa.
No, the Raptors don't get moved. Yeah, we're like I think we're the 6th most profitable franchise in the NBA. So the fandom and stuff, there's no way the Raptors get moved.
I don't think that's true, Ben.
I'm pretty sure.
Dude,
we're one of the biggest.
The league hates it. The league hates it. It was like one of the worst NBA Finals ratings of all time before the bubble.
Because it's American ratings. They don't take into account Sportsnet and TSN and all that.
But they don't get profits from Sportsnet and TSN.
Yes, they do. They get money from it, but it's the ESPN ratings and all that. I don't know. They're not going to get moved from Toronto. That's just definitely not going to happen. But it would be cool to get a team from your home city, Vancouver. I know Montreal, where I'm living right now. Well, not right now. Pre-COVID would be a cool place in Canada, but I'd say
there's a lot of good basketball players from Quebec too. So there must be a good following of basketball in that province, in that city, Montreal. But I hear a lot about Seattle. To me, that makes sense to give them back a team first.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. I would love to see Vancouver get another NBA team because they got robbed from Memphis, but really not robbed. They were a horrifying franchise for those
My
years.
baby.
Mike Bibby and Big Country. That's what my dad always told me growing up. Before I let you guys know, because I know you got a Raptors game to watch, I play this game called Who Are You Better Than? So since you guys are fans of the Raptors, insiders with the Raptors, I'm going to run down every single Eastern Conference team. You're going to say if you're better or worse than them. And I kind of pop a question to each team. So I'm going to go from top to bottom right now. So the first team up is Philly.
Before we really dive into it, you should also note we're also Raptors homers as well. So
that's fine.
Listeners, take that into account. But Philly, they're good right now. They got Joel Embiid. They have the Daryl Morey, who really pieced that roster together, really a lot better than it was last season with 3-point shooters around Simmons and Embiid. But I guess the comfort blanket of Marc Gasol guarding Joel Embiid is now gone. But I still just don't fear the 76ers. I don't know what it is about their team, but I feel like if we played them in a 7-game series, we'd figure it out. Lowry would get his way, and we get it going. I know the Raptors, we think they'll bounce back. We're playing this game assuming they bounce back to where we think they'll be. I'd still put us ahead of the Sixers, Ryker.
Yeah, definitely. This is the issue, is they have the same struggles. Once Joel Embiid gets shut down, Ben Simmons can't space the floor. They brought in Seth Curry, which is tremendous benefit to them, but they rely heavily on really young guys like Tyrese Maxey, and they don't even play Matisse Thybulle, who we thought was going to be defensive legend on the team. They're still struggling to figure out where their three-point shooting is going to come from when their big guys are going to get stopped. Tobias Harris is woefully inconsistent. He's awful. He's the worst contract on their team. I joined a 76ers podcast, and they were like, we don't like them, but it is what it is. They obviously defeated the Raptors, but we held a 15-point lead and then collapsed. So Raptors are better for sure.
Does a Harden trade go down for Philly this season?
They don't think so, because they're not willing to trade Ben Simmons. They don't want to put Ben Simmons on the block.
I wouldn't.
That's
want
what it would take.
Ben Simmons either.
I'd trade Ben Simmons for Harden in a heartbeat. That would be done immediately. James Harden's way better than Ben Simmons.
Yes, but James Harden added like 15 to 20 pounds the week he went to the strip club for that week straight. Next team up is Boston.
It's tough to say we're better than them after losing in the playoffs to them and losing Ibaka, losing all these guys, but the Celtics they've bounced back a little bit from the early struggles. So, but not really having the floor spacing, having Tristan Thompson there and these guys. I'll put the Celtics ahead of us for right now because I guess you have to, since they beat us in the playoffs last year, but I would still go into a series against them with confidence.
No, it's a big fat no for me. The Raptors are worse for sure. I said Boston is the second best team in the East this season. I believe it. They're good, man.
They're so iffy with me because I really need to see them with Kemba, because their starting five on Christmas Day, I believe against Brooklyn, was Marcus Smart at the 1, followed by Brown, Tatum, Tristan Thompson, and Daniel Tice. I mean, Kemba's had a history of injuries. I'm just worried if he gets injured before the playoffs and that's the lineup you throw against hopefully a team like yours, you guys would kill him, I feel like, with the guys you have in Pascal, OG, Fred, and Kyle. I would rather take your 4 over their 5. But next team up is Indiana.
Yeah, we're better in Indiana.
Yeah.
Ooh.
They just always sneak out good records. Not like Domantas Sabonis, hands down most underrated player in the league for sure. Malcolm Brogdon, he's a good player. Oladipo, he's woefully inconsistent. I'm glad we didn't sign and trade Fred VanVleet for him, because we would be way angrier this season with the Raptors plus Oladipo. But no, they just sneak out good records, but the Raptors are better for sure.
As Paul Pierce used to say about us, the it factor. It's just not there with Indiana. It's not there.
Well, they are my dark horse for a possible Harden trade, because, and it might be crazy to you, you brought up Oladipo, you throw in Miles Turner, possibly you probably would have to give up 2 or 3 future firsts. I mean, he would absolutely hate it there, but I mean, they would, in my opinion, they would be a top 3 team in the East if they trade those 2 with a couple firsts for him. I mean, I just feel like it would make sense for a team like that.
I've never heard that before. I've never heard the Indiana comparison brought up, but I feel like you'd have to throw in Sabonis at that point for our James Harden trade. And even if it is Miles Turner, even though he has some value, the rise of Christian Wood, I think, makes a center being brought back, lowers that sort of need for Houston, but they're struggling right now, so who knows what they'd accept at this point. But they definitely have some assets. That'd be a sneaky, interesting move.
Yeah, for sure. Next team up is Orlando.
Well, definitely now they have Markelle Fultz down. They have, I don't know what Aaron Gordon is doing, but they're just a bad team. The Raptors smash that team every single year in the playoffs. It seems they're a terrible franchise. That's why we both thought we knew our writer Josh was going to get flamed for sending Lowry to Orlando of all franchises.
Yeah, and they also hold one of Riker's favorite players of all time, Terrence Ross, who I have to note is averaging a 20-piece this season. Riker, he loves the consistency.
20 turnovers?
Riker loves the consistency Ross brings night in, night out.
Sorry, Ben, did you say he's averaging 20 turnovers?
No, a 20-piece, Riker. 20-piece, 20 buckets. The Trey balls, Trey Ross. It's I don't know. I like the Magic. I always root for them. I really like Markelle Fultz, but I feel like we lose game 1 against them, but then we sweep the rest of the series.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you brought up that. Will they ever get over being the mediocre 8 seed in this East, or do you think they're just either going to be that or worse every single year?
Well, Atlanta might beat them this season, so they might be the mediocre 9th seed this time.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And I think at some point you'll see them make a Blake Griffin-esque Pistons trade, and maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but I don't see them trading for James Harden, but a player that's not a superstar, but is disgruntled, and just you can make a move for him if you're the Orlando Magic. They have a lot of good pieces. But they don't have any great pieces. So they have the Aaron Gordon contract, the Fournier contract. We'll see what happens with them, but I feel like either a big move is coming or just players are going to leave.
Zach LaVine.
That'd be a player. That'd be a guy that I could see them trading for.
Next up is Milwaukee.
No. Milwaukee's the best team in the East. But their issue
I don't know about that.
Their issue is Mike Budenholzer he's a one-trick pony, and he won Coach of the Year one season, and the NBA just loves to give Coach of the Year to the team with the best record, and it's hard not to have the best record when you have Giannis on your team. But the issue is you shut them down, they could become lackluster. I don't think Noah Vonleh is half the player that they were hoping that he would be thus far. I don't know how well Drew Holiday is turning out, but obviously it's a benefit getting rid of Eric Bledsoe. But at the end of the day, they're a better regular season team. No two ways around it. They're probably the best in the East.
Yeah,
Ben,
and if we're talking playoff series, again, you'd have to put the Bucks as a better team than us right now, the same way that we had to with the Boston Celtics. But when you get into a playoff series and you have to make adjustments, and I don't see a lot of depth with this Milwaukee Bucks team. Riker mentioned a little bit, but the guys like DJ Augustine, Bobby Portis came in there, haven't been taking this
Bobby
team
Portis,
to the next.
I said Noah Vonleh. You're right.
Yeah, they haven't taken the team to the sort of next level that you'd like them to see. Drew Holiday, again, the playoffs is where you bring in Drew Holiday. Eric Bledsoe is a great regular season player, and there's not much of a jump there in the regular season. Be interesting to see what he can do in the playoffs, but I feel like they can be game planned for. You have to give them the benefit of the doubt because they definitely have the better roster right now on paper, and they have a better record, and they have all that sort of stuff. But again, am I picking the Raptors to lose 4 out of 7 games against a team like the Bucks or the Celtics? That's going to be tough to do, in my opinion. But
yeah, you guys
we're like dead last right now.
You guys brought up my question for you with them. Really, it's my question with any Bucks insider I talk to. Was Drew enough to get over the hump for the playoffs? In my opinion, I don't think so. I mean, you've had guys even they had Malcolm Brogdon. which they were stupid to get rid of.
Mhm.
But when you look at Philly, even Boston, Indiana, Brooklyn, even Miami still, I just don't think they're that much better than those 4 or 5 teams I just said. But next up is the resurgent New York Knicks.
Shout out RJ Barrett. We played
Exactly.
I played in a tournament against that guy in nationals as a kiddo, so I don't know. Always rooting for the Knicks, but yeah, they had a hot start. They lost to us when we were playing really bad. I don't have that much faith in them.
3 years ago, I was peeing and I was in the urinal and I turned around. I was leaving the washroom. I washed my hands and I had my head down and I bumped into somebody. My face hit chest. Maybe it was even upper stomach, like upper abdomen. And I looked all the way up, and there was RJ Barrett. And I geeked out. I think he's like, what, 3 years younger than us? Well, maybe he's the same age as you, Parker.
He's
Ben.
a year
I don't
younger
know.
than me. Or
I'm 19.
Well, how old would he be? 20?
Yeah, he's like, I think he's a year and a bit older than me.
Okay, yeah. So he's probably 2 years younger than me. I fanboyed real hard. So anyways, but also shout out to I'm not even gonna remember his name. Julius Randle for having a LeBron-esque season, but the Raptors are still better than the Knicks. They're the Knicks.
100%. Do you think they can possibly make it to the play-in this year, though, now that the play-in is going?
No.
Yes, I think they can make the play-in. I had them making the playoffs last year, but I was very high on RJ Barrett.
Oh, wow.
That was my worst take last season.
Ben, I think you're the only person in Canada that thought the Knicks could make the playoffs last year.
Well, dude, it's 7 and 8 are always sub 500. So it's like you only have to be better than Brooklyn or Orlando. Like you're not in tough company.
Yeah, but again, it was the Knicks of last year who had high expectations. The Zion, Kevin Durant, Kyrie, felt like freaking Jesus. They were going to try to recruit to come and play for them. But I don't know. They're like, I really like Obi. I really like RJ. I think, and Mitchell Robinson is pretty dang good for me watching him these last few games. But I don't know with them. I really like the higher tips though. Next up, you're going to say, of course, you're better than them, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Whoa, dude, Sexland.
I really like Sexland.
Yo, I got Darius Garland on my fantasy team. I'm rooting for that guy, but I don't know. If we're worse than the Cavaliers, and I guess we are record-wise right now, we
are worse, no. They had like a 5-0 start, and now they've lost 5 since. I've said this time and time again about Andre Drummond. He is the most empty stat getter in the NBA. He is a 20 and 15 guy, or 20 and 12 guy, really, and that contributes absolutely zero towards a team winning. He could put up probably 40 and 30. And it still wouldn't contribute to a team even being marginally close to winning a game. So when you have him as your third best player, that's not a good team.
Ben, what do you think?
Yeah, they're not on paper. I could see them maybe making a run. Maybe, as you mentioned, the play-in tournament allows a lot of these teams to maybe sneak in there. Mm-hmm. Kevin Love comes back healthy. I feel like I haven't seen that guy play since LeBron James left the Cavaliers, and he's been getting paid a max contract. If he can sort of give them some decent minutes, I know Cedi Osman's a fan favorite on r/NBA and stuff. The Sexland backcourt, Andre Drummond, as much as Ryker likes to trash on him, he's still a good player. So they have Nance, they have McGee off the bench. They have a lot of different guys. I can see them maybe sneaking into the bottom of the East, but am I worried about them? No,
exactly. I don't even really have a question for them. Really can Okoro be the rookie of the year this year?
He's nice.
I was watching a little bit of him play Memphis before I came on here, and he had a pretty athletic dunk. That's all I'll say. But
that's your criteria for getting rookie of the year.
No. But he plays really good defense. He's been pretty solid on that end. I mean, he's contributing in ways that probably you wouldn't see on the stat sheet, but.
Listen,
I don't know.
Charlotte will probably slip into the playoffs. They don't give out rookie of the year for defense. They don't give it out for highlight dunks. They give it up for raw stats. And LaMelo Ball, if he keeps putting up near triple doubles, his minutes are only going to increase. He's getting it. He's the runaway rookie of the year this season.
Well, the next team up is Charlotte. So are you better or worse than Charlotte?
I like Charlotte.
I'm a fan of LaMelo.
I think Eric. sorry, not Eric. What's his name? Gordon
Miles
Hayward.
Bridges?
I think he just put up a 40 piece.
Yeah, he did. I think he had
Against the Knicks,
44 the other night.
I put up 44
Yeah.
tonight.
I don't know.
Either way.
Like, I think they'll definitely be another one of those teams in the running for a play-in spot. But they gave Gordon Hayward, again, he has some moments. He looks good at occasionally, but they gave him all of that money. I think it was an extra $40 million when compared to Fred VanVleet's deal. I don't know what the consensus is around the average NBA fan, but I think you'd have to be insane to want to give more money to Gordon Hayward than Fred VanVleet, but that might be a Raptors homer take. But I don't know. It reminds me of the Batum deal. They have LaMelo Ball, which is nice. Devontae Graham's been bad this year. Terry Rozier is a nice piece. An average starting point guard in the league. Miles Bridges. They have a lot of nice pieces, but they don't really have that guy to take them over the top. Maybe LaMelo can develop into that. Gordon Hayward's more of a good starter at this point rather than a max contract guy. Again, another decent team in the East.
Yeah, I mean, I really like their roster. I just think they need a better coach. That's really my thing with them. Their coach is pretty young. I know he's had experience in San Antonio and been top assistant coach, but when you got young talent, especially with, like, let's not lie, Melo's got a huge ego with him. He's had it since he was like 14 years old. I just worry that his head is going to get way too big, but he's in the smaller market. So, well, here's a good question that I've been asking a few people. Do you think rookies strive better in small market cities like a Detroit, like a Charlotte, instead of being a rookie in a bigger market, maybe like Toronto, like New York, like LA, cities like that?
I think it's dependent on the player, really, their personality and stuff, how they thrive. Again, you look at a new dubious example is Joakim Noah. Obviously, went to New York and blamed the city of New York on him becoming one of the worst players in the NBA. So I think it's very player dependent. I don't know if there's any trends. That'd be an interesting analysis, actually.
Well,
to see.
Perfect example to bring up would be you have at times. So obviously there's a big jump between being the most hyped in high school and being the most hyped in college. So ratings change vastly. But if you look at high school rankings, you had Austin Rivers at the top, you had Malik Monk at the top, and those change because they're playing mostly divisional, like within their state. And then when it goes to college, you're playing against the best guys. But Austin Rivers didn't pan out to be much of an NBA player. But the perfect example is Malik Monk. He's right there on the Charlotte Hornets, and he's really struggled to get any significant, meaningful playing time, any significant, meaningful roster position. He's crazy athletic. He has a 42-inch vertical. He has some really sweet highlights in the NBA, but he just didn't have, that's the thing. That's the difference between having the right attitude of being that guy in high school, being that guy throughout your entire life, and just struggling with your role when you get to the NBA. But it seems like LaMelo Ball early, he's not even starting and he's still putting up pretty good numbers. So I think Ben's right. It depends on the player. It depends on the mental.
And I think it's more so the development staff of the teams, because we see teams like Toronto and Miami bring in guys, no matter who they are, as rookies and just turn them into stars. And you have they're big markets, but you have teams like the Knicks and the Lakers for those stretches, and their players don't really get good till they leave. And obviously it was different. Now it's different with the Lakers now as they have LeBron and AD, but still it's an interest. And then the San Antonio Spurs, a notorious small market for turning guys good. So I think it's more organization rather than city.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Next up is Miami.
I think that's the Raptors' closest comparison, though. Would you not, Ben?
I just don't fear Miami. I thought we would have swept them in the playoffs, even in the bubble. I think we match up poorly against the Sixers, and I know heat culture, I know all this sort of stuff, but I am low on Miami. I've been outspoken about that. I think they have a lot of good guys, a lot of hustlers, but if you scheme for those guys, you know what to do with them. I think they're beatable.
Miami has shooters, though. That's the issue, is they have Duncan Robinson, who lives outside, and Tyler Hero and Goran Dragic, who's one of my favorite players because I wanted to go to Slovenia really bad, and I researched a ton of that country, and he's a hero there. He's an actual local hero. He brought some sort of like FIBA championship to their country and single-handedly put up like 30 points per game. He's great, and he's good in the NBA too. But I think the issue with the Raptors is that they have challenged defending against tertiary or fourth option or fifth option 3-point shooters. That's what we just saw in the loss against the Golden State Warriors, is that they make Steph Curry have the worst shooting night of his career, 14 straight misses, and then guys like Damian Lee come out and splash threes. Draymond Green was hitting threes. Andrew Wiggins was hitting threes. They just have a big challenge in guarding that fifth option 3-point shooter. That's why Miami is a tough matchup.
Yeah.
But the Duncan Robinsons and the Tyler Heroes, we just feast on those players on offense. We just figure out the bad matchups, and Nick Nurse just goes to work on those players. So we always end up beating Miami when it matters, even though I don't know what our record is. But from the eye test, from them and against them in the past 4 or 5 years, but from the eye test, from that playoff series we had against them, we just usually come out on top against the Heat.
Yeah. My question for you guys with Miami, is Tyler Hero overrated, underrated, or rated just right? I would say he's overrated. Sorry.
It depends who you're talking to. Because some people say he's an all-star right now and he's a super this, he's all that. That's not the case, but I think he's a starter for sure. I think he's a starting caliber player. Needs to amp it up on the defensive end, needs to get more consistent, but he's a young guy. I think he's definitely going to be a good player, but not Devin Booker right now, at least.
Riker, your thoughts?
He gets this clout because in the biggest games he's performed, and I think that is kind of the marquee standard for somebody who's going to be a good player in the league. You know, when the light is shining the brightest, you need to put up big numbers or game winners or whatever, and he's done that now in his short career in the NBA. So I think he's deserved the kind of attention that he's got so far. But to be a good player, to be a great player, you need to do it, like Ben said, consistently for a couple of seasons. Like, I don't think that Jason Tatum started like up here, but he just steadily got better and better every season. Tyler Hero could be that guy, or he could slip off.
Yeah, for sure. Next up is Brooklyn.
I'm so high on Brooklyn, and then all of a sudden they start losing games. The Brooklyn Nets currently have no idea where Kyrie Irving is or why. He's apparently, quote, off the grid completely. So,
oh my gosh.
I predicted that chemistry was going to break this team apart, but so did Ben, I think. And but if they can come together, they're lethal. But I think Kyrie is just a damaging player to be part of a franchise.
Steve Nash, if the Brooklyn Nets win a championship this year, even with all their talent, Steve Nash's contract should be converted to $100 million per year deal, maybe a couple $100 million, because that is a complete mess of a collection of guys to really sort of get on the same page and stuff. And I've never been just fans of KD, Kev, and Kyrie Irving, not because of anything particular. They're just two guys I haven't really gravitated towards too. They're usually going up against players I like. So no real hate or anything, but it's fun to sort of root against those guys for me personally. But talent-wise, again, everyone has to be high on this team. And KD, Kevin Durant, Karis LeVert, they lost Dinwiddie, but DeAndre Jordan, Jared Allen, Joe Harris, they have so many guys. Will it all fit together, though? Will Kyrie Irving sort of stay focused and stuff? I know he gets memed for a lot of weird stuff, but he just hasn't really fit with a lot of when he's been around good players. So you can meme all the off-the-court stuff all you want. You can cheer for him or say he's being overhated, but the results haven't worked with Kyrie Irving yet. KD obviously is a phenomenal basketball player, but did win those chips with Steph Curry, definitely the second best point guard of all time. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out, but Nash deserves a lot of credit if they end up piecing this thing together.
I feel like, to me, they were a championship or bust team with Dinwiddie healthy. I don't know anymore with it, but you guys bring up the personalities. I think if there's one guy that can get all those personalities to coexist, it is Steve Nash. Not just because he's a really nice guy and he's Canadian, but I mean, he is, in my opinion, Steve Nash is the greatest point guard ever. One of the best leaders. I mean, he helped Phoenix here for years be great. But do you guys think it's a championship or bust season with this roster now or in a year or two?
No, because you can flip LeVert, you can flip Jared Allen, you can flip Dinwiddie, Taurean Prince. You have a lot of assets on that team, so I wouldn't be too worried about them.
Will KD be healthy next year? Will Kyrie Irving retire next year? Will any of these players be around? I don't know. I think if you have those two guys on your roster with a strong supporting cast, it is championship or bust. Obviously, circumstances are going to happen and weird stuff has happened this season. So I don't know if it really can be championship or bust for anyone right now because the league is just is upside down right now. We're last in the East. The Nuggets have been bad. The Magic I guess they always start the season a top 3 seed, it feels like, and then they just fall off. But the league is really in a weird place right now. I feel like the playoffs will be the same thing. Maybe this will be the actual season with an asterisk, but I don't know. It's I think in a normal circumstance, this has to be championship or bust.
Yeah, I would think so. I'm gonna do these two next. There's 4 more teams left. I'll do 2 and 2. Next 2 up are Atlanta and Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago sucks, so you don't need to talk about them very much. Atlanta's all right. They might make the playoffs. They've been struggling, and then they get good. But Raptors, I would hope that the Raptors are a 7th or 8th seed. But, on paper, the Hawks are just too young. That's what I'll say about that. They're too young, and the Raptors, they're a bunch of vets, so they shouldn't lose in a series, but anything could happen, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of DeAndre Hunter. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think they have a lot of offensive talent. They have a lot of guys that can really work together. I like that they brought in Rajon Rondo, Danilo Gallinari, all these players. But again, I'm obviously been higher on the Raptors than Ryker has been sort of to start off this year. I think we definitely smoked the Hawks with the experience and the players and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, the Hawks will be good. The Hawks will be good, especially if Cam Reddish can develop into a player they sort of expect him to be.
Yeah. Does John Collins demand a trade this year for whoever snitched on him with those tweets that leaked?
No, I don't know if he demands a trade. He doesn't want to become a locker room or get the label as a mess in a locker room on a contract year. I think he's just going to play it out, try and get his stats, and try and get his money.
Riker, you agree?
Yeah, sounds about right.
The last 2 up are, in my opinion, the 2 worst teams in the league, Washington and Detroit.
You said it. You said it. I'll confirm it. Period.
I can see the Wizards bouncing back, though. I don't think
dude.
I don't.
Thomas Bryant just got an ACL injury.
Yeah, they're done.
So
maybe I renege on that take, but I feel like if they get rid of Scott Brooks, they run a fast-paced offense. I have not watched many Wizards games this year, so my take probably isn't as sound as it could be, but I feel like they have enough talent to be good. I like Denny. I think Hachimura could be a nice piece. Their defense is what holds them back from being any bit good, and Russell Westbrook's not going to help with that. Bradley Beal isn't really going to help with that. Denny isn't going to help with that. Bertans isn't going to help with that. They're one of the best offenses in the league last year, but they have a lot of guys. I think maybe a midseason trade, maybe making the roster make more sense, getting a better coach, but I don't think they're as desperate as Detroit. And Detroit's a big meme for Toronto Raptors fans, as obviously Dwayne Casey went there following being coach of the year with the Toronto Raptors, and we fired him. And Riker and I have been big fans of Casey, but everyone knows he's a great culture guy. He motivates, he gets the most out of his players, but really doesn't make the in-game adjustments, doesn't have the sets that lead to success in the playoffs. And he'll do the same thing. He's like Mike Budenholzer. I compare Dwayne Casey to Mike Budenholzer. Very similar coaching styles. Budenholzer has a little bit of more creative offense in the regular season, but Dwayne Casey has come out and said some things about the Toronto Raptors since he's left, saying, "Oh, they don't have a championship pedigree. You walk into Detroit and you see those championship banners and you just feel rejuvenated, energized. And then as soon as he leaves, we actually get a championship." So that's the meme with Detroit. But yeah, maybe one day they'll be good.
I wish nothing but the best for Detroit. I had Anthony from Pistons talk on the other week, and he was saying a lot of Pistons fans want Casey out of there and a guy that will be able to play this young core. Because to be honest, I really liked what they did in the draft. I mean, Killian Hayes was solid before he got injured. I really like Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey. Jeremy Grant was a solid signing. I just don't know what the hell they're doing with like 7 centers on their roster.
They got extremely fortunate with Jeremy Grant because that could have went way left field. They give this guy money as if he's going to come in and be James Harden. And randomly he does. He goes from being a 3-and-D guy on Denver to literally putting up over 20 points per game, scoring in creative ways. What killed them was signing Mason Plumlee, or whatever the Plumlee brother is, right? That ruined them. That ruined them. So Angelo Okafor, and still having, credit to him, Blake Griffin's developed this 3-point shot, but he's got to go. He's a dinosaur. So
yeah, but
good on him for getting Jeremy Grant.
And for Washington, I never liked the trade they did for Russ, trading Wall. Russ is Russ. He's a ball dominant point guard who is a stat sheet stuffer. He doesn't really, to me, he doesn't really care about the team. He'll say all he wants, but he cares about his triple doubles. And to me, that's just it. And Bradley Beal needs to get the heck out of Washington. He needs to go somewhere where he can actually contend, at least for more, not just playoff contention, but hopefully finals contention, because he is a superstar talent. But do you guys have any? Oh, what?
Toronto. I've been asking to trade for Bradley Beal for years.
Bring him home.
Who would you give up? My last question for you guys, because then you got a Raptors game to watch. Who would you give up for Bradley Beal?
Not Pascal, because he would be the perfect second option with Bradley Beal. But at this point, you'd have to give up Van Vliet, and we wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Ben?
You might do that. Especially if you have Lowry. I don't know. People, I definitely wouldn't give up Fred and OG. OG is such a valuable asset to our squad. He's the Swiss Army knife that could potentially develop into a nice swing player. But I don't know. It's interesting. People have been asking for Beal since we've basically started the podcast. We've probably done 5 trade videos on him over the past 3 years. So he's a guy that's destined to come to Toronto. So we'll see if it actually happens.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, thank you guys for coming on. Do you have anything to plug? Shout out your YouTube and stuff before you get out of here?
Well, yeah. So we follow Raptors Digest on YouTube. Subscribe to us over there. We're on Twitter. We got that back going now. We've been sort of off the Twitter scene for a little bit, but the Instagram's been great. We just launched the TikTok, so been learning that sort of side of things. Definitely interesting content can be made over there. And we've also been plugging the website on everything. So raptorsdigest.ca, got a lot of cool articles going up on that, sort of still building that out. So lots of things to plug, lots of Raptors content to check out. So yeah, that's what we're throwing out. If you have anything else, Ryker.
Yeah, Parker, it's been an absolute pleasure. I appreciate you reaching out. It's really fun to have somebody else who's not an actual Raptor fan to talk about Raptors basketball with. So really appreciate your time, man. It was great.
I'm so interested in not just you guys, but every single NBA team. And I feel like a lot of the sports media does not give the recognition that some teams deserve, like you guys. And my hope is to give a platform to guys like you who are true NBA fans to just say whatever the heck you guys want to say, and we can argue what we want. But I really appreciate you guys coming on, and I'm definitely going to have you guys on again.
All right, man. Cheers.
All right, guys. Thanks.